Thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to be building this virtual community with you. My name is Glenn Manning. I'm the Senior Project Manager at Harvard's Making Caring Common project. Today, we're going to be talking about how to care for all students in times of need. Primarily, we'll be focused on our relationship mapping strategy, as it's a wonderful opportunity to better understand the types of relationships that exist between staff and students, and then help staff members reach out and connect with those students who might need some additional support. We'll talk more about that in a minute. We'll talk a little bit about why this work matters right now, and I'll share the objectives of the strategy. Then we'll dive right into the strategy itself and discuss how it can be used to first get a sense of the relationships, like I said, between students and school adults, and then connect those students who don't have a trusted adult and make sure that they build a relationship with that student. We'll take some time to share out during the last section of our webinar today. So hold on to questions for that portion. Look forward to hearing from you later on. Creating relationships, especially right now, is harder than ever, of course. In fact, I'm hearing from educators across the country, really around the world, who have seen their work with students in terms of relationship building as being entirely reset. So this strategy itself is really meant to help you better understand which students could use a little bit more support, and go ahead and reach out to those students and really make sure that they feel connected to not only a single school adult, but to the larger school community. Of course, as we consider how students are affected by this time period, it's important to remember that for some of our kids, success might look like building or renewing or perhaps sustaining even just one single connection. That might be where some students are right now in terms of their development. At the same time, we have students who feel highly engaged and very connected, and so we want to make sure that we're supporting them at the same time. This strategy will help us do both. We've adapted it to a virtual environment in case you are working entirely virtual or are hybrid at this point. And again, sort of now more than ever important that we really identify those students who could use an additional connection. So with that, we'll go ahead and take a look at the objectives for the strategy itself. Again, as I've said already, the relationship mapping strategy enables you to identify those who do or do not have a positive and stable relationship with a school adult and connect at least one adult in the school to every student who might benefit from a caring relationship with an adult at school. It works by gathering information first from all school adults about the types of relationships that they have with each student in the school. And then we'll really walk you through ways of generating supportive and caring relationships with those students. Let's take a quick look at the strategy at a glance here. Before we even engage, we will want to email the staff and faculty a sheet with a description and a purpose for the activity. We could be providing instructions in the body of the email or perhaps even on a separate attached document. That's totally fine. We want to schedule an online meeting with the entire staff. That can be done in groups, but basically we want to make sure that every staff member, this is every school adult, including people like teachers, counselors, coaches, support staff, but also in addition to those individuals, front office staff, nurses, bus drivers, even folks who are responsible for taking care of the facilities of a school. These people can be important contacts for students. So let's make sure that everybody is on this list. Ensure that the online document that you'll be sharing will be accessible and editable by everybody, but also want to make sure that the sharing settings, that is the security settings on this document, are appropriate for the number of people that are going to be engaging. So really important that we make sure this sheet that we'll be sharing stays within the community. So that's an important piece. And of course, if we can be helpful at making caring common in terms of providing assistance or consultation around how to do that well, please let us know. Quick tip here. I always like to share just a couple of small ideas. If we want to do this by grade level, that's completely fine. I think especially at the elementary level, that's a great option. We can be doing that by creating different tabs within a single sheet based on grade level. You can also incorporate this into an existing staff or department meeting if that's appropriate. In the school in which I worked, that was often how we would do it. So go ahead and feel free to manipulate this strategy as you see fit based on your local context. But again, really want to make sure that everybody in the school, all adults, have access to the sheet that we'll share and an opportunity to really map those relationships that they have with students. Of course, many students who were at risk before the pandemic are even more at risk now. We know many students experience events like the ones that we are currently living through in very different ways and at different times. During the reflective meeting that you'll want to hold, this first big meeting, school adults will have the opportunity to not only reflect on the importance of key relationships in their own lives, a practice I think is worthwhile, in its own right, but also to begin to link up with students in need of some support. So the first part of this big meeting that we will have is about framing. We'll take about 15 to 20 minutes for this portion. Another resource that you might want to use to frame conversations might be research findings about positive relationships and how important they can be in the lives of students and staff members. You can also check out the Making Caring Common website for additional examples of that. But if you feel like your staff and your faculty is ready for it, perhaps we're jumping into conversations focused on questions like, who were these relationships with that we made? What made these relationships meaningful? Perhaps who are the students who we have sort of naturally developed relationships with? How did those form, right? What made those meaningful? If we can have a few folks during this meeting share out, that's always really terrific. And of course, we want to make sure that we're thanking those folks. It's sort of a bold step. So again, there are different opportunities to sort of open up this conversation. And I hope that you'll let us know if we can be helpful in considering additional ways. The second portion of the meeting is a reflective portion. It's really about, again, 20 minutes, and it is an opportunity for folks to really analyze the list that will be created. When I refer to a list, you'll see in the strategy itself, when you download it, that we're going to want to create a list with every student's name on it in the entire school and columns on either side. Those columns will indicate, one, that a student might be at risk personally, academically, or otherwise. On the other side of that student's name will be a column to indicate that a staff or faculty member has a caring, close relationship with that student. So again, once folks have had an opportunity to map out the types of relationships that they have with each student, we will analyze that list together and think through kind of what was interesting or surprising. What details did we notice? What questions or reflections does that map evoke now that we've had an opportunity to look through it? The next portion of this important first meeting is about action planning. So we'll take, again, about 20 minutes for this. We're going to want to match those students with staff members who have been identified as perhaps having no caring adults who have a close relationship with them. Small schools might even consider matching students who have just a single adult who has identified having a caring relationship with them. If needed, we might be assigning a couple of adults based on whether or not that student needs even more additional support. And we can be doing that based on a variety of different criteria. One of those can just simply be that this adult and this student have a similar schedule. They'll see each other each day or at a certain point each week. Ultimately, it would be even better if we could be matching students who we have some kind of connection with already. That might be, a similar kind of interest or passion, or any number of other ways in to these conversations, these early and really important conversations. So we want to think through what possible factors might contribute to some students having kind of more caring relationships, or why some population perhaps of our student body lacks these connections already. I want to think through what kinds of school-wide changes might be made to increase the number of caring adult relationships our students have, and also think about what we can do as individuals to increase the number of caring relationships that we see in our school. So, why did people place a check mark in the column for indicating that a student is in need of additional support? Why did maybe we place a check mark on that other column that says that we have a caring relationship with them? What does this make us think about? Sort of suggest or ask about support that might be helpful to folks as they start to engage in these conversations. Finally, we'll want to make sure that we mark a reminder in the school calendar and in our own personal calendars for 4 weeks after this first initial reflective meeting, and then again for 4 to 5 months after that first reflective meeting, so that we can come together as a community. I'll talk a little bit more about that now. So again, some folks wonder how to begin these conversations with students. Again, ideally staff are matched with those folks, these students who have one or two ways of connecting with them already. If that's not the case, I think it can go a really long way to sort of simply let students know these are trying times. We want to make sure that they know we are available to talk, that we want to hear from them. So we might ask students simply how they've been feeling, how are they doing, what's sort of been difficult at this time for them, or maybe even how they've been able to take care of themselves or a family member, if that's appropriate. Maybe ask simple questions about what kinds of things they're doing that bring joy to their life at this time. If a school adult knows a student has a particular passion in a given area, it might be wise to begin with that as a way in to the conversation. But I think it largely depends on the student and of course the adult in terms of how we're going to kickstart this connection. The follow-up meetings establish expectations for behavior and really creates a collaborative, supportive culture that's going to be conducive to risk-taking and to sort of full participation among staff. So after about 4 weeks, you're going to want to reconvene all of those staff members who committed to reaching out to a disconnected student. We'll think through questions like, was there a connection made with each student? Did the student respond positively? If a connection wasn't made, perhaps the group can discuss ways of overcoming challenges or obstacles. And create a plan together if that connection maybe wasn't strong or a student didn't respond well. And then 2 months after the meeting, or 2 to 4, I would say, reconvene and do the same thing. Be sure to conduct these regularly, but in between those, it's always important to conduct informal check-ins with staff and students as well. That really is the relationship mapping at a glance. I hope that you will be sure to download both the virtual and the in-person strategy versions, whichever is most appropriate for you. And if both are, that's great too. We are always here to help. And I hope that you'll reach out to me. Again, my name is Glenn Manning, and you can get in touch with me at Caring Schools with an S at makingcaringcommon.org. I hope you will, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, and have a great day.